Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Nick Juskewycz of DailyFantasyWinners, bringing you another edition of Tee to Green. This is a preview for the St. Jude, or the FedEx St. Jude Classic, I should say. This is the tournament for the U.S. Open, and I bring this up because we already have several withdrawals from this tournament, or WDs, if you will. This is mainly due to players qualifying for the U.S. Open that played in a qualifier on the sectional qualifying on Monday. Usually, what people or players will do is if they have not qualified for the U.S. Open by one of the just the ways to get in, they will be registered to play in the tournament in Memphis this week because if you win the event, you make it into the U.S. Open. But also, they will be there's also sectional qualifying that they'll play in to try and get in. So if they were successful on Monday, which a handful of players already were, as you're probably watching this on Wednesday or the day before the tournament, some players have already withdrawn. And on DraftKings, they finally just posted the little red O basically by the player's name saying that they're out of the tournament, they've withdrawn. That's because they qualified for the U.S. Open on Monday, and that's kind of like their strategy. Unfortunately, I will say this though: do not necessarily rely on the red O's that DraftKings puts up. Sometimes they have missed them in the past. They've gone a lot better about it this year, really over the last couple of years. But once in a while, they'll still miss one, or withdrawals happen at the last second. And then there will also be some withdrawals potentially during the tournament because most of the people in this golf tournament, while they are usually playing in this event to try and win and get into the U.S. Open, there are still some players that are playing in the U.S. Open next week who have qualified that are deciding to play in this. And some players are good about this, but there are definitely a handful of players, if there's like a rain delay per se, and it's just it's going to be an extended rain delay, and there's a potential Monday finish, or it's just a long wait on Friday or Saturday, let's say, and they're just out of contention in the golf tournament, they might just say, the heck with this, I'm out of here. Like, I don't want to get to Oakmont really late and have, a shortened preparation. That can definitely happen here, and it's been known to happen. The good news for this year is that, as of right now, looking at the weather in Memphis is supposed to be perfect, nothing but sunshine all through Sunday. It's just supposed to be incredibly hot with temperatures in the mid to upper 90s, which luckily we don't have to worry about that, but I wouldn't worry about too much from the player's perspective. But in any case, there will still be also once in a while if a player feels like a slight injury or something like that, if it would pop up at a major championship, maybe they would, kind of suck it up and just play through it. But in a tournament like this, if they are supposed to be playing in the U.S. Open the next week, and if something little kind of pops up or flares up in there, they will be more likely to withdraw. We have definitely seen that in the past as well. And so just letting you know, you will be thrown a curveball here or there this week, and you hopefully can just dodge the bullets. And for the most part, unless, with the exception of doing research and checking up on Twitter and, making sure that, there isn't any news that someone's withdrawn before the tournament, you just have to dodge the bullets that are thrown at you after the tee time start, and there's just nothing you can really do about it. Sometimes it's just the way it happens at this tournament. So that's just kind of like a preliminary thing, just to kick things off here a little bit. But so there is more risk at this event, one way or the other. But still, it is a much weaker field here because most of the players that have qualified for the U.S. Open are already there preparing, and a lot of people generally just don't like to play the week before a major championship. There have been a lot of random names that have won this golf tournament. If you're just kind of a casual golf fan, so to speak, and you look back at some of the previous leaderboards, and sometimes even just not even necessarily win the golf tournament, but just in the top 10, there can be a lot of random names certainly near the top, or just players that you would see that like, wow, that player was clearly priced, at $7,000 or $6,000 even, so to speak. So in any case, we're going to focus on the strategy here a little bit on how to attack that, so to speak. But first, let's just dive into the golf course, TPC Southwind, which is where this tournament is at, in Memphis, Tennessee. It is a par 70, tipping out 7,239 yards, pretty average distance course for a par 70. There is a ton of water on this golf course. That's kind of the main thing here. It's a ton of water, but there's also like just a ton of hazards. There's a bunch of high grass, basically if you miss the fairway too poorly in some areas as well. There's just a lot of hazards on this golf course, and a lot of balls end up in the water as well. You have to be striking the ball well here in order to play well. This is a ball strikers golf course, but bombers have, done all right here as well. So as if I say this is a ball strikers golf course where the accuracy is important, that doesn't mean you should just limit yourself to not using bombers, because some bombers are hitting the ball well as of late. So that's something certainly to be taking a look at when you're doing your research for your lineups. If you're looking for just like a course comparison, again, these golf courses are definitely have some differences. I'll start off by saying that. But if you're looking in terms of something similar, in terms of like the variance, in terms of like how many penalty strokes can come into play, because usually when the more penalty strokes on a golf course, the more variance you are going to get, generally speaking. Again, generally speaking, in terms of like higher skill golfers versus lower skill golfers, basically, the more penalty strokes there are, there's going to be more variance in terms of the lower skill golfers having a chance, basically, in dodging the bullets of the hazards, or out of bounds or whatever it is. So there's a lot of variance, a lot of hazards, and the fact that both courses are flat. The course comparison I would make between TPC Southwind is TPC Sawgrass. They're both very flat. They have a lot of water, a lot of hazards you got to deal with. Again, there's a lot of differences I know between the two courses if you look beyond that. But as far as kind of the comparison I would make in terms of, you can get some big players, some good names up there that miss the cut. It can happen here at both of these tournaments. So again, more on that in just a moment. And also, since this is a par 70, let's take a look here at the par 5s here. There are only two par 5s, of course, because it's only a par 70. Number 3 is 554 yards. You usually need to be a longer hitter, kind of, not like, you don't have to be a bomber like a Dustin Johnson or, Jason Day, even though he's not in this tournament. You don't have to be a bomber to reach that green in 2, but you need to be at least, at worst, middle of the road, if not decent at hitting this green in 2 and having an eagle opportunity. You will usually see about 5 to 10 eagles here on this golf hole. And then number 16, only 530 yards, and pretty much everybody can eagle this hole. You usually get over 10 eagles on this hole, and in some years we've seen over 20 eagles on this golf hole, pending conditions and pin placements and all that. But anyways, just taking a look at those two par 5s, going for a bomber is not necessary. Just to take a look at that, because we always want the upside with the eagles as we take a look at that, which was a big deal certainly last week when we were looking at the Memorial Tournament. Statistics: strokes gained tee to green, proximity to the hole, scrambling, birdie or better percentage, bogey avoidance, because we got all the hazards, and recent performance. If you've noticed on PGAtour.com, I think this is about a week old news now, PGAtour.com, or the PGA Tour, I just should say, have statistics now that aren't just strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained putting. They have strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approaches, strokes gained scrambling, or around the green, I think is the proper term, and then strokes gained putting as well. So they actually have divided the two categories into 4. They still also have strokes gained tee to green, and strokes putting, of course, still stays there, so you can still divide it into the 2 if you want. But they've basically taken strokes gained tee to green, divided it into 3 separate categories, and which is awesome. And that's something we're definitely going to want to look at in the future when certain courses feature certain characteristics more, or certain statistics that'll become more relevant. This is just a golf course here. When you take a look at past leaderboards and look at the way it sets up, that while it is a bit of a ball striker's golf course, you really need to be solid in every facet of your game, and there isn't a specific area of someone's game, whether it's scrambling, putting, or approaches necessarily, that I think is especially important this week. I think you need to be hitting the ball well as of late, and you need to be in good form. There is a chunk of that, but just because of the variances of the hazards, and just because of all the different challenges it kind of throws at you, you need to be solid in all facets of the game this week. So we don't need to dive into that just yet, but we will definitely be diving into the specifics of how the strokes gained has divided up a little bit in the near future. So that is it as far as the preliminary stuff, and we're going to get into the picks. But before I give you the specifics on these picks, again, with the water hazards and all this, we're going to have a lot of variance here. And with the U.S. Open next week, even though there will be a lot of variance at Oakmont, the ownerships at Oakmont that aren't like the most expensive guys, like, Day, Rory, Jordan Spieth, guys like that, guys more like the $8,000, $7,000, $6,000 range, those ownerships will be a lot more predictive, and we can kind of attack those percentages for the lower range. The ownerships this week, I think, when we're taking a look at the $7,000, $6,000 level golfers, even $8K maybe, I don't think you're going to see somebody or anybody that's really too highly owned at one spot, just because you have so many. You just have so many different names, basically, that are on a much lower price range. If you take a look on DraftKings, and we'll just do this right now, you can see we only have 6 golfers that are above 10K, which is generally kind of the normal thing. But, Ryan Palmer, Gary Woodland, Daniel Berger, usually more 9K player golfers. There are only 4 9K golfers. Wesley Bryan was actually somebody I was going to target that if you know Wesley Bryan, Wes and in any case, they've got like this. They've got, if you follow them on Snapchat, they're a lot of fun to watch basically, and they do all kinds of trick shots, and they're always documenting like their stuff going on the web.com tour a little bit. But Wesley Bryan's actually been playing very well on the web.com tour, but at 9K, unfortunately, I'm not going to go for him at 9K. But in any case, if you take a look at some of these golfers at like 9K, like Colt Knost, Charles Howell, Kyle Reifers, like they're usually not 9K. They're usually much cheaper. There aren't that many players in the 8K range and even the upper 7,000 ranges where they start piling up. But basically what I'm getting at is 8,000 and above, you are seeing very few options, and there is just a lot of I'm not going to say the word random because that's not right, because there were a lot of names here we've used here in the past. But basically, just because it's a weaker field, you see a lot of players' salaries more expensive than they usually are. And so bringing this back to what I was saying here is I wouldn't tack any Jeep specific person's going to be too highly owned in that $7,000, $6,000 range maybe, just because there's enough names down there and enough variety to pick from. So that's not really the strategy. So what I would do though here is what I'm going to do something a little bit different here with the picks this week is I'm going to give you a pretty small A list on here. And the reason why is I would recommend throwing a wide net of people basically with your GPP lineups. And I would really, really emphasize a balanced salary method. I would use very much 9K through 6K players, and that's pretty much it. I would fade all the 11K players, and I would even be tempted to do some of the 10K players. I don't know, it's a little bit on the bold side. And usually, by the way, I don't like fading a bunch of the most expensive guys just because their ceilings are that much better. And that is important basically because you want to have like some ownership of some people just in case. But if this golf tournament specifically, because we have so much variance with the hazards, and there are only a few like top names, and with like Dustin and Phil and Brooks Koepka and people like that, there's very few people at the top. Their ownerships are going to be extremely high. DJ Phils and Koepkas, they're all certainly going to be over 20%. Dustin's absolutely will be. It's just simply not worth the ownership, in my opinion, because I don't think their chances of winning this golf tournament are necessarily that great, despite the fact that they're clearly on another level than the other players. It's just because of the golf course that this is, and it's the week before the U.S. Open, and these things happen. And if you look historically, big names do not win here very often. I know there aren't that many big names usually here each year, but nevertheless, it's very rare that a bigger name does end up winning here. It's a rare occurrence. So in any case, I would fade all the 11K guys. If you really want to play an 11K guy, I would play Dustin just because I think he is playing a lot better golf than Phil and Koepka and has a much higher ceiling. And he always has the birdie upside. But again, just one bad round hitting the golf ball on this golf course can easily result in a missed cut. So just keep that in mind. So I would fade all the 11K guys and maybe even potentially the 10K guys, but that's a little more bold. You don't have to necessarily go that far. So anyways, I'm going to give you a short A list that's basically is from 9K all the way down. And then I would just basically, there are my favorite plays this week, but again, these are just guys that I like slightly more than basically a wide net of other players. And so I would really just attack that balanced salary method and fading a few of those top names, because you should get some unique lineups pretty easily in that regard if you go with that strategy. And of course, I'll have all the rest of that wide net of picks on the Daily Fantasy Winners forum. Definitely go check that out as I've been posting there each and every week. Okay, so on to the picks and the specifics. 9,200, Kyle Reifers. He is in outstanding form right now. He is probably playing the best golf in his PGA Tour career, even though he's not exactly. He's kind of he's not a rookie by any means of imagination. He's been around for a while, but he's finally bursting onto the scene here a little bit more as of late. There really is no hole in his game right now, which is which is a first kind of for him in my estimation. And he should be pretty low owned just because he is 9,200, which is pretty expensive for him. And he's never made the cut here, but just keep in mind he's missed all 3 cuts he's played here. But you have to realize it goes back to 2007, 2012, and 2015. Not that big of a sample size, and he's a much better golfer now as he has been in years past. I do want to get into course history more as a talking point in a future video, and I will definitely address that more as kind of like a main, kind of a strategy video that'll come in the near future. So that's the first pick is Kyle Reifers. 8,400, David Hearn. He is definitely in great recent form. In 6 of his last 9 tournaments, he's finished T28 or better. This is a weaker field as well that David Hearn is going against. So I would think that he's definitely easily got top 10 potential here, and maybe could even win the golf tournament. Certainly, he has tremendous upside. And then, of course, he's just a good course fit because he is a great ball striker. 8,100. This is a steal at 8,100 in this week of a field. Francesco Molinari. I was shocked that the Vegas odds did not have him as better odds per dollar, basically, in Vegas. So he is in outstanding form outside of the Memorial. But keep in mind, when Francesco played at the Memorial, he had played the week before in Europe at the BMW. And again, as you know, I'm not a big fan at all of players playing in one country and then playing in another country where there's a huge time zone change from one week to the next. If there's a week off, your body can get adjusted a little bit, but it was from one week to the next. And so in any case, that's why I had Francesco on the B list last week, just because he was in that outstanding form. And, I thought it was a little bit, that's why he would have been on the A list otherwise, but that's why he was on the B list last week. And it was a good thing we went that way because it didn't go so well for him. So this is why he is back on the A list this week. Now he's a little bit more adjusted to the U.S. time zone, and I guess in Memphis, which is Central time zone, I believe. I hope I got that right. Yeah, it should be. Anyways, in any case, so Francesco, definitely very good fit here. 7,800, Chad Campbell, who's in great form, great ball striker. He's very good at avoiding mistakes. He plays well in these types of golf courses where there's a lot of hazards, and he has better upside than you think. If you take a look at some of his missed cuts this year, pretty much all of his missed cuts this year are at Bombers type of golf courses, which this is not. So I think Campbell's a tremendous fit here. 7,500, Steve Stricker. Stricker is somebody that I recommended. I just had, I mistimed him a little bit this year because I recommended him a decent amount earlier on this year because I thought he was not getting enough credit for how great of a ball striker he still was. Granted, he had a limited schedule and wasn't racking up all the FedEx or Ryder Cup points, in the past, and clearly he's more on the veteran side, absolutely. But he was missing some cuts early on, and then I got off of him a little bit. Just in the last few tournaments he's played in, and then he started turning it around. And it's just kind of one of those things where I kind of wish I stuck it out with him a little bit longer, just because he is playing a shortened schedule. That regression, so to speak, takes a little longer to play out. And so Stricker is a tremendous course fit here for being a good ball striker. I think you're getting great value with Stricker at 7,500 against this week of a field, and absolutely can finish top 10 and maybe even be in contention here down the stretch. And second to last pick, if you will, Jerry Kelly at 7,300. He has missed 3 of his last 4 cuts, which might mean some low ownership, but he barely missed the cut at all of those, and his stats have been pretty darn good this year and even as of late. And he's got really good upside as well, and he's a good course fit here, and this tournament field is much weaker. I think you're getting pretty good value at 7,300 with Jerry Kelly. Jerry Kelly is somebody, quite frankly, if he was in slightly better form as of late, he would be in the lower 8,000 range, or maybe at the absolute worst upper 7,000 range. If he just maybe made a couple more of those cuts, he would certainly be getting a little bit of a bump there. So Kelly, I don't think I would not focus too much hard on the recent form as of late with Kelly in 3 of the last 4 tournaments missing the cuts, just because I don't think it's as bad as it quite looks. And then the last pick, and this is kind of a little bit of a wild card because I think he's significantly underpriced, is Mark Ternessa. He's all the way down at 5,500. If you do want to play Dustin Johnson and you're looking for maybe like a Dustin, and then you want to put in Reifers, and you want to put in David Hearn, and then you're looking for somebody to kind of make sure you're not doing a complete studs and scrubs lineup, Mark Tanessa would be the way to go. He is simply too cheap for this week of a field. I actually think he is somebody that could easily finish top 20 this week, and is playing pretty well as of late. So in any case, that would be who. That is the shortened A list this week. That is it. I will have the B list, of course, with other thoughts and information on DailyFantasyWinners.com in the PGA forum. Definitely go check that out. And next week is the U.S. Open. So for the U.S. Open, I should say for the Masters, I did a 3-part kind of video thing. The first week I did, or the first video, I did just kind of a general overview preview of the tournament. The second week, the second video, I did a video focusing mainly on the strategy toward the Millionaire Maker with the Masters. And then the third week, or the third video, I keep saying that, the third video were the picks. I think I'm going to probably do something very similar with Oakmont with this week coming up. I'm going to do a general overview, GPP strategy as it pertains to the Millionaire Maker, and then, of course, the picks as well. I've got a pretty good strategy saved up for Oakmont, which I think will be pretty unique, which hopefully will work out as well. And I might combine those first 2 parts as far as the general overview and the GPP strategy into one, pending how long the videos might pan out, and when I start mapping it out a little bit. So anyways, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. If you like these videos, please remember to subscribe and like our Twitch and YouTube pages. You can follow me at Juskewycz on Twitter, and of course, Daily Fantasy Winners at DFantasyWinners. All right, thanks.